Jalen Spraggins, and this presentation is about how should we organize society. So about a month ago, Dr. Carden asked us to explain how we thought we should organize society through an online homework assignment. And at the time, I really didn't put much thought into it, but I was like, capitalism is really the way to go. And so with that being said, this presentation is virtually an extension of that answer. And I still hold that capitalism is the most plausible method for organizing society. Since we're all little macro economists in here, I'll spare you and won't tell you the definition of capitalism because you already know it. But a little history about it. The term was actually coined back in the mid 19th century among socialists, and it even made an initial appearance in the 17th century England among Puritans under the rule of John Calvin. And during this time, they actually kind of refocused their energies and investments into hard work and modest living, and then brought those ideas and concepts over to New England. And so shifting gears a little bit, we often tend to focus on like the broad aspects of capitalism. We tend to compare it to socialism and communism, but I still think that the main driving force behind capitalism is man and his thought processes and how he thinks about economics and on the cutting edge. And so capitalism is basically the product of man's intellect and ingenuity. It's the only economic system that allows man free reign to seek out knowledge, apply that knowledge to everyday problems we encounter in life, and then create production from it. And so Ayn Rand, she's a well-known Russian-American novelist that was around in the 20th century. She wrote Atlas Shrugged, and she basically said that man's mind is his basic mean of survival, which means that his mind is the only means of him gaining knowledge. And so if man happens, for a second if you will, if man happens to not think about economics on the cutting edge of stuff, he basically copies and emulates others that have came before him. But if we look at those others who came before him, they found a way to improve methods of production or create new methods of production, and therefore they survived and lived on. And so in essence, man's ability to drive capitalism really requires him to be able to think freely and to not interfere with those who don't think freely about economics. And so this is how capitalism remains on the cutting edge of production, and this is how it's a driving force as far as it being a first-class economic system. And so this is also how society is advanced, because you have these free minds able to think as they want and then come up with ideas that really drive society forward. And so my next point is about the free market. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the free market when talking about capitalism. And so once again, the free market is the area which allows these minds to think freely and act openly with each other. And so with the free market in place, we can easily establish the value of somebody's economic work by our willingness to trade with them, trade their services and products for our goods and services. And so the free market really demands your A game. So you can't come in half-stepping into the free market. And so we tend to see that the most successful businesses and entrepreneurs are really on the cutting edge in the free market. They discover new methods of production, target new audiences, and they are really successful in really like creating new areas of production that we haven't seen before. And so since we've established that minds must be free from really governmental controls such as socialism and communism, and that the market must be free and open too for these minds to interact, we really have trade. This is really where trade happens and develops, and as we learned in chapter 2, talking about the power of trade, trade makes everybody better off. But it really doesn't stop there. Trade creates value of goods by moving goods from people who value them less to people who value them more. Trade increases productivity among us. It also creates a new wealth of knowledge around the free market. And so all of this in turn increases economic growth, as we saw in chapter 2. And so with this increased economic growth, with the free mind, the free market in place, we really have an increase in the standard of living among even the poorest of countries. And so it really brings hope and optimism to past and future generations that they can perhaps one day live in a capitalistic society and take advantage of those freedoms.
All right. Kyle Hughes.
Okay, I have a question. You mentioned Ayn Rand.
Mm-hmm.
I know she's kind of controversial and
Yeah.
kind of an extreme. What are your thoughts on her?
I thought she was a a little extreme in some regards, but with her ideas on capitalism about the mind, I thought it was really interesting to note that, I mean, if you go back from generations past, really how we function as a society, as far as us being a capitalistic society, is really those minds being able to come up with new technology, targeting new audiences, new products for us to really continue to thrive and move forward economically, of course.
Okay. So you mentioned that free minds and free markets are necessary if we're going to have prosperity. Why can't we have free minds and prosperity under alternative forms of social organization?
I mean, in essence, we could, but if we looked at those, they haven't been very successful in the past. I think, you know, speaking of a capitalistic society, I think the United States, I mean, or any capitalistic society for that matter, has the most upside to continue. Of course, you're going to have booms and recessions, of course. You're going to have that anyway, but it has the most upside, the most potential to continue to just plow forward.
Okay. How do we decide what to produce if we don't have prices?
Good question. I think that's why prices are in place, so we can decide what to produce. If we don't have prices, we really wouldn't know what to produce and when to produce it. So I think prices are definitely, you know, prices are a reflection of the market, and they're definitely a signal for us to know what to buy, when to buy it.
All right. Work.